ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੀ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਆ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੀ ਫੌਜ ਦੇ ਹੱਥ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਦੇਸ਼ ਵਾਸੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਆ ਦੇਣ ਲਈ ਕੜਾਕੇ ਦੀ ਠੰਡ ਅਤੇ ਤਪਦੀ ਗਰਮੀ ਨੂੰ ਸਹਿਣ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਦੂਰ ਰਹਿ ਕੇ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਖੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਿਸ਼ਚਿਤ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਸਰਹੱਦਾਂ ਤੇ ਦਿਨ ਰਾਤ ਖੜੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਯੁੱਧ ਅਤੇ ਲੜਾਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਲੱਖਾਂ ਕਰੋੜਾਂ ਫੌਜੀਆਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਜਾਨਾਂ ਲਈਆਂ ਹਨ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਰਧਾਂਜਲੀ ਦੇਣ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਰਿਮੈਂਬਰੈਂਸ ਡੇ ਭਾਵ ਯਾਦਗਾਰੀ ਦਿਹਾੜਾ ਮਨਾਇਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ, ਅਮਰੀਕਾ, ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਸਣੇ ਕਈ ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਦਿਹਾੜਾ ਮਨਾਇਆ ਅਤੇ ਵਿਛੜੀਆਂ ਰੂਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਰਧਾਂਜਲੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਗਈ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪਤਨੀ ਨੇ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਵਾਰ ਮੈਮੋਰੀਅਲ ਓਟਾਵਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਰਧਾਂਜਲੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ। ਕੋਰੋਨਾ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਇਸ ਵਾਰ ਬਹੁਤੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਣ ਦੀ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ। ਇਸ ਸ਼ਰਧਾਂਜਲੀ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਮਾਸਕ ਪਾਏ ਸਨ ਅਤੇ ਸਭ ਨੇ ਸਮਾਜਿਕ ਦੂਰੀ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖੀ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਸਥਾਨਕ ਸਮੇਂ ਮੁਤਾਬਕ ਸਵੇਰੇ 11 ਵਜੇ ਸ਼ਰਧਾਂਜਲੀ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਇਆ। ਉਂਝ ਇਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਰ ਸਾਲ ਹਜ਼ਾਰਾਂ ਲੋਕ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਨ, ਪਰ ਇਸ ਵਾਰ ਕੋਰੋਨਾ ਕਾਰਨ ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਲੋਕ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਸਨ। ਬਾਕੀ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਘਰ ਬੈਠ ਕੇ ਹੀ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਫੌਜੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਲਾਮੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਅਤੇ ਟੀਵੀ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਰਿਤ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਦੇਖਿਆ। ਦੂਜੇ ਵਿਸ਼ਵ ਯੁੱਧ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਲੜਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਾਬਕਾ ਫੌਜੀ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਯੁੱਧ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਈ ਸਾਥੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਗਵਾ ਲਿਆ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ।
Today we are not at war, but we are in a battle for our individual and collective health and well-being. Who joined the front line against COVID-19 shoulder to shoulder with our heroic healthcare workers? Yes, our soldiers.
One of the central lessons of the pandemic is that governments and the international community can mobilize when the stakes are high. And we must ask ourselves now how we can use the same motivation and the same energy that we demonstrated in recent months to address other global challenges. From fighting climate change to building economies that work for everyone to advancing gender equality, we have a lot to do. And Canada is taking a leadership role in finding innovative solutions to make sure that developing countries have the necessary resources not only to recover from this pandemic, but to fight the most pressing issues of our time too. That's why we're co-leading the global initiative on financing for development in the era of COVID-19 and beyond with Jamaica and the UN Secretary General. Despite the challenges before us, I know we can bounce back together and build a better planet that is healthier and safer, cleaner and more competitive, and fairer and more inclusive for everyone.
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਭਰ 'ਚ ਯਾਦਗਾਰੀ ਦਿਵਸ ਮਨਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ। ਇਸ ਦਿਨ ਲੋਕ ਆਪਣੇ ਤੁਰ ਗਏ ਕਰੀਬੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਜਿਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਯਾਦਗਾਰੀ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਕੀਤੇ ਗਏ, ਜਿਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਭਰ ਤੋਂ ਆਮ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਵੱਡੀਆਂ ਸ਼ਖਸੀਅਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਸ਼ਿਰਕਤ ਕੀਤੀ। ਜਿਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਦੇ ਮੇਅਰ ਜੌਨ ਟੋਰੀ ਵੀ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ। ਕੋਰੋਨਾ ਮਹਾਮਾਰੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇਕੱਠ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਗੁਰੇਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ।
They were young as we are young. They served, given freely of themselves. To them we pledge, amid the winds of time, to carry their torch and never forget.
The past 100 years, on November the 11th, our city has gathered here at the Old City Hall in front of the cenotaph to properly remember those Canadians who gave their lives fighting for our freedom. And this year, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, we have ensured that the chain of remembrance, 100-year chain of remembrance, is not broken. We stand here on behalf of all Toronto residents to continue the act of remembrance and to let our fallen heroes know that nothing will stop us from remembering them.
Today, With great awareness, deepening of our human resolve, we gather across our nation to remember our fallen soldiers and those still with us. As we delight in the freedoms we share in our nation, we do so with great appreciation for the sacrifices made by our fallen soldiers. And though the battle no longer rages in Flanders Field, in this season of pandemics, our struggle and fight for freedom remains as fellow humans. And may the memories which this ritual evokes in us inspire us to take risk for the sake of peace in our homes, in our cities, in our nation, in our world. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand.
ਉਧਰ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਭਰ 'ਚ ਸਾਰੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ 'ਚ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਾਸੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਸੈਨਿਕਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕੀਤਾ। ਇਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਦੂਜੇ ਵਿਸ਼ਵ ਯੁੱਧ ਦੀ 75ਵੀਂ ਵਰ੍ਹੇਗੰਢ ਮਨਾਈ ਗਈ, ਪਰ ਕੋਰੋਨਾ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਦੇ ਕਹਿਰ ਨੂੰ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਸਖਤ ਪਾਬੰਦੀਆਂ ਹੇਠ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਮਨਾਈ ਗਈ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ 'ਚ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਦ੍ਰਿਸ਼ ਦੇਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੇ। ਸਭ ਨੇ ਆਪੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਲਾਮੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ।
Generations of Canadians have served our country and the world during times of war, military conflicts, and peace. Through their courage and sacrifices, these men and women have helped to ensure that we live in freedom and peace, while fostering freedom and peace around the world.
ਮਿਸੀਸਾਗਾ ਮਾਲਟਨ ਦੇ ਐਮਪੀਪੀ ਦੀਪਕ ਆਨੰਦ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਢੰਗ ਨਾਲ ਯਾਦਗਾਰੀ ਦਿਵਸ ਤੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਰਧਾਂਜਲੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਬੀਤੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਰਿਣੀ ਹਾਂ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਹਿਫਾਜ਼ਤ ਲਈ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਾਨ ਨਿਛਾਵਰ ਕਰ ਗਏ। ਆਨੰਦ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੀ ਉਮਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਦੇਣਦਾਰ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ।
Marks as Remembrance Day in Canada and across the Commonwealth. As we commemorate and pay tribute to our fallen heroes, we pause to remember and honor Canadian men and women who have served our country and fought for freedom around the world. On Remembrance Day, we acknowledge the courage and sacrifice of those who served their country and acknowledge our responsibility to continue working for the peace they fought hard to achieve. By remembering their services and their sacrifice, we recognize the value of freedom. This year, Remembrance Day services throughout Ontario may look a little different due to COVID-19 as we practice social distancing and in preventing the spread of the virus. We will continue to reflect on the sacrifices for freedom through commemorative services, acts of remembrance, wreath laying, and moments of silence across the province and the nation. While wearing the poppy with pride or observing a moment of silence, let's never forget our fallen heroes and the pride and the price of Canadian freedom and democracy. If you know of a veteran in your circle or your neighborhood, Please reach out to them and thank them. Let's be
ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਦੇ ਮੇਅਰ ਜੌਨ ਟੌਰੀ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ, ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਅੰਦਰ ਕੋਰੋਨਾ ਦੀ ਦੂਜੀ ਲਹਿਰ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਗੰਭੀਰਤਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੈਂਦਿਆਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਮਕਸਦ ਹੈ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਆ। ਉਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਲੌਂਗ ਟਰਮ ਕੇਅਰ ਵਿਦਿਆਰਥੀਆਂ ਅਤੇ ਘਰ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਜਾਨਾਂ ਬਚਾਉਣਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਮੁੱਖ ਟੀਚਾ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਉਨ੍ਹਾਂ
We are clearly in the midst of a second wave, and while we knew it was coming and while we took measures to address it, this wave continues to build at a pace that is no less than alarming. Our focus remains on saving lives, on protecting the health of our residents, especially our most vulnerable residents in long-term care homes and students in school, for example, and keeping our healthcare system from being overwhelmed. Today, Dr. Davila will outline the recommendations that she is advancing in the face of the rising COVID-19 cases in our city and in our region. She's been clear with me and with all the people managing this pandemic that these actions are needed in order to stop the spread of this virus in Toronto. Our public health officials have worked to address all of the areas where it is possible to come into contact with this deadly virus. Dr. Davila is laying out these strong and responsible actions that we need to take as a city government and that we need people to take themselves in order to save lives and to get our city back on track. We had extensive discussions. I asked, as did others, many questions, and I am satisfied these are the right measures to take at this moment in time. This is a relentless virus, and we must meet it with an unwavering resolve and a renewed commitment to following the rules. We see the number of new COVID-19 cases in our city continue to climb, with more than 500 cases a day yesterday and again today. As the doctor has said, those case counts don't point us towards relaxing roadblocks, much as we might want to for many different reasons. Our test positivity rate, the percentage of tests that come back positive, has risen from 1.3% in September to 4.8% in the last few days, and the Dr. Davila will tell you it's gone even higher than that today. Health officials get concerned when that percentage rises over 3%, because then you start to run the risk of an exponential growth of cases, a wildfire of sorts. And we know the positivity rates are higher than that in young people getting tested and in the northwest part of our city, where some of our most vulnerable and marginalized populations live, and that the positivity rate is getting higher and higher in elderly people being tested. In the last 4 weeks, we've gone from 2.3% to 7.9% test positivity among people over 80. These numbers, together with others that Dr. Davila will reference, set alarm bells ringing and present a challenge to us to act with strength and with responsibility. On top of those statistics, we are also seeing an increase in long-term care home outbreaks and in hospitalizations. While our hospitals continue to have capacity right now, we know that they are concerned that circumstances could change very quickly, as we have seen in Peel, where their hospitals have been overwhelmed recently by COVID cases. It happened very quickly, which underlines the need for action now before it happens here in Toronto. These are all warning signs that we have seen in other jurisdictions around the world. Peel region took action because its indicators that track the pandemic are trending in the wrong direction. Next door to us, in Peel, their case counts and test positivity rates remain high. Public health capacity is...
ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਦੀ ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਐਲਨ ਡਿਬੇਲਾ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਲੰਘੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਅੰਦਰ ਪੋਜ਼ਿਟਿਵ ਕੇਸਾਂ ਦੀ ਪਰਸੈਂਟੇਜ 'ਚ ਵਾਧਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਦੀ ਰੇਸ਼ੋ 5.9% ਦੱਸੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਉਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਨਵੰਬਰ 1 ਤੋਂ ਨਵੰਬਰ 7 ਦੇ ਵਿਚਕਾਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟੈਸਟ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ, ਉਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ 6% ਕੇਸ ਪੋਜ਼ਿਟਿਵ ਮਿਲੇ ਹਨ।
% positivity figure for Toronto is 5.9%. This means out of all the Toronto residents who tested for COVID-19 between November 1st and November 7th, just shy of 6% tested positive. The spread of COVID-19 has never been greater in Toronto. In recent days, we've seen the confirmed case counts rising to an alarming extent. Today, we're reporting 533 new cases of COVID-19. Yesterday, we reported 504. The total for the past 4 days is close to 2,000 new COVID-19 infections in our city. The temporary restrictions that were imposed last month were meant to create barriers to contact between people in order to limit spread. We have seen some success. In late September, we had seen increased case counts downtown in neighborhoods where socializing was high and that are home to many bars and restaurants. In the waterfront communities and the island neighborhood, for the period from September 18th to October 10th, the COVID-19 case rate was 275 per 100,000 people. The temporary restrictions began on October 10th. And for the 3-week period ending November the 8th, the case rate had dropped to 49 per 100,000 people. In Little Portugal, another downtown neighborhood with a relatively young population and many bars and restaurants, the COVID-19 case rate for the 3 weeks ending October 10th was 604 per 100,000 people. And by November the 8th, it was 77 per 100,000 people. We don't want to surrender what we've gained from implementing these measures. For most of this time period, case counts remained stubbornly in the low to mid 300 cases per day. In recent days, we've seen local COVID-19 cases rise to more than 400 cases per day and twice above 500 cases per day. Admissions to hospital are rising slowly but steadily. The trend is upward. The grave risk we currently face is evident. More action is required to protect the people of Toronto from the rampant spread of COVID-19. Given the circumstances I've described, as your medical officer of health, I am using my authority to issue Section 22 orders under the Health Protection and Promotion Act to extend certain actions that are necessary given what the city is currently facing. This will sustain the following requirements for a 28-day period when the province moves us into its new framework on November 14th. Indoor dining will remain prohibited at restaurants, bars, and food or drink establishments. Meeting and event spaces will remain closed, as will casinos, bingo halls, and other gaming establishments. And the prohibition on indoor group fitness and exercise classes will continue.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਸਾਡੇ ਚੈਨਲ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਈਕ ਤੇ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਕਰੋ YouTube ਤੇ।